I hadn't planned on staying long at the reunion, just long enough to prove I existed, that I'd survived the laughter, the pity, the whispers. The ballroom shimmered with champagne light, crystal chandeliers throwing reflections across the polished floor. My heels clicked softly as I crossed the room, the silk of my emerald blouse whispering against my skin. They were all there, my parents, my cousins, and of course my sister, Madison. She sat at the center of attention, her designer suit practically screaming success. My family had always seen her as the real achiever, while I was the one who had quit a real job to chase a hobby. When I told them I was starting my own design studio 3 years ago, they laughed. Freelance? That's not a career, honey, it's a phase, my uncle had said, tapping his glass like he'd made a joke worth toasting. Now, as I stood at that same table, I smiled through polite conversation. My heart was calm, but underneath the calm was a quiet satisfaction, because tonight, they had no idea who I'd become. And then it happened. Madison's phone pinged. She frowned, turned the screen toward her chest, but not before I saw the notification light up across her screen. Application rejected. The irony hit like the faintest breeze against my cheek. The same sister who'd once mocked my choices had just been denied hers. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel small. I just smiled and said softly, "Tough night?" 3 years earlier, I was standing in that same dining room, the one with the oversized chandelier and too many opinions. It was Sunday dinner, the weekly performance where everyone tried to outshine each other's lives. Madison had just gotten promoted at her firm, and my parents couldn't stop glowing. "So, Emily," my mother asked, slicing into her roast, "how's that little design thing going?" Her tone was sweet, but the pause before a little stung more than she knew. "It's going," I said carefully. "I'm launching my own studio next month. It's called Eden Design Company. I already have 2 clients booked." A silence dropped across the table, thick and judgmental. Madison laughed first. "Clients? Like friends paying you in coffee?" Everyone chuckled. Even my father smirked. "Sweetheart," he said, "why not get a steady job first? You're good with computers, maybe marketing something safe. Design's nice as a side thing." The lump in my throat tightened. My fingers twisted the napkin on my lap, the linen biting into my palm. "I don't want safe," I said quietly. "I want meaningful." That's when my uncle raised his glass and said the line that would brand itself into my memory. "To Emily, may her dreams pay her bills someday." The laughter that followed wasn't cruel on purpose, it was worse. It was careless. The kind that makes you feel invisible. After dinner, I stepped outside to breathe. The cold air wrapped around me like truth. My grandmother, always the quiet observer, followed me onto the porch. She placed a soft hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't let them measure your worth in applause, darling. Build your own table. And when it's ready, let them knock." She handed me her old silver bracelet, engraved with tiny vines curling around the word grow. I wore it every day after that. Reminder that seeds don't ask for approval to bloom. That night, I packed my things and left home. No dramatic goodbye, no slammed doors. Just a quiet decision, a promise to myself that I would never let their laughter define what I was capable of. As I drove away, city lights blurred in my rearview mirror. I wasn't sure where I was headed, but I knew one thing for certain. Someday, they'd see what I'd built. The first months on my own were nothing like the glossy dream boards I'd taped above my desk. My studio was a cramped corner of a shared apartment in downtown Seattle, lit by a flickering lamp and fueled by instant coffee. I'd wake up before sunrise, the city still asleep, and sketch designs with trembling fingers, hoping someone, anyone, would see my vision. Money was tight. I learned to stretch a single grocery run for weeks, to celebrate small wins like landing a $200 logo job or a positive review on an online platform. At night, when doubt crept in like cold air under the door, I'd touch my grandmother's bracelet, feeling the engraved word grow against my skin. It reminded me why I started. One morning, an email changed everything. "Hi Emily, I saw your portfolio online. I'd love to chat about branding for my boutique." Her name was Rebecca Hayes, owner of a small but ambitious jewelry brand. When we met for coffee, she looked at me with a kind of belief I hadn't seen in a long time. "You have something, Emily," she said. "You don't just design. You tell stories through your art. Let's build something together." That meeting became the seed of a partnership that would transform my life. Rebecca didn't just hire me, she mentored me. She taught me how to pitch clients, manage contracts, and value my own work. "You can't price your worth by fear," she told me once, stirring her latte. "You charge for the value you create, not the approval you crave." Her words sank deep. The more I worked, the more my designs began to speak for themselves. A boutique turned into 3. Then came an online campaign that went viral, one of my minimalist logo designs featured on a lifestyle blog. Within months, I was fielding calls from clients across the country. Still, I kept my success quiet. My family followed me on social media, and I posted only modest updates, photos of coffee mugs, a laptop, a quote about hard work. I didn't need to prove anything yet. I wanted my results to speak louder than words. By the second year, Eden Design Company wasn't just a small studio anymore. It had a team of 5, young designers who'd once been told they weren't practical enough. I paid them fair, mentored them like Rebecca mentored me, and built a space filled with creativity, laughter, and freedom. When I finally moved into our downtown office, a sunlit loft with exposed brick and a skyline view, I stood by the window and whispered, "We did it, Grandma." The city looked different from up here.
So did I.
But even as success grew, I never reached out to my family. I saw their posts, Madison's promotions, my parents' dinner parties, and felt nothing. No anger. Just distance. They had their world, and I had built mine. Until that email arrived last week. "Family reunion, Sunday, 6 p.m. Everyone's coming. Hope you can make it." I stared at the screen for a long time. Maybe it was time. Not for revenge, but for revelation. The reunion was held at the Lakeside Country Club, polished marble floors, soft jazz echoing through the chandeliers, and laughter that sounded more like performance than joy. I arrived a few minutes late, deliberately. Let them wonder if I'd even show up. When I walked in, a few heads turned. Madison's voice carried across the room, high and confident. "Emily, you made it," she called out, flashing that perfect, rehearsed smile. The same smile she'd worn the night she laughed at my dreams. "Wouldn't miss it," I said, returning her smile. She hugged me, her perfume sharp and expensive, the kind that lingers even when you wish it wouldn't. My mother looked me over, polished nails, tailored pantsuit, subtle diamond studs. Her eyes flickered with something between surprise and curiosity. "You look well," she said, pausing just long enough for the word to sound like a question. "I am," I replied simply, setting down my clutch. "How's everyone?" Dinner began with the usual pageantry, career updates, vacation stories, Madison's new house, and endless talk of success measured in promotions and titles. When it came to me, my uncle chuckled. "So, Emily, still doing your, what do you call it, internet art thing?" I smiled, sipping my water. "Still doing it," I said softly. "It's been going better than expected." "Oh? Are you working somewhere now?" my father asked, leaning in as if expecting I'd finally taken their advice. "I own my company," I replied. "We just signed a deal to rebrand a major international fashion house." The table went silent. Madison laughed awkwardly. "Wait, you own a company?" "Yes," I said, my voice calm. "Eden Design Company. We've got offices in Seattle and New York. I started it 3 years ago." My cousin's fork froze midair. My father blinked twice, the way he used to when something didn't compute. My mother reached for her wine. "Eden Design," she murmured. "I've seen that name somewhere." "You probably have," I said. "We did the rebranding for Serafina Jewelry. Rebecca Hayes is my business partner." Madison's jaw tightened. "Rebecca Hayes? The Rebecca Hayes? I've been trying to get her to look at my business proposal for months." Before I could respond, her phone lit up beside her plate. The notification flashed clear across the table. "Rebecca Hayes. Application rejected." No one spoke. Madison fumbled to flip her phone over, color rising in her cheeks. My uncle coughed into his napkin. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch until it hummed. Then I smiled. Well, I said gently, I guess the universe has a sense of humor. My mother whispered, Emily, I had no idea. I know, I said, my voice steady. You never asked. The air shifted, guilt, disbelief, pride, all tangled in one heavy pause. For years, I had imagined this moment filled with triumph or anger, but what I felt was peace. They looked around the room now, noticing the small details they'd missed before. The designer bag, the custom jewelry, the quiet confidence that came from earning your place. I wasn't showing off. I was showing up. Madison finally looked at me, her voice softer now. How did you do it? She asked. The way anyone does, I said. By believing in what everyone else laughed at. For the first time in my life, my father smiled, not the patronizing kind, but genuine, proud, almost apologetic. Seems we misjudged you, kiddo. I met his eyes and said quietly, You didn't misjudge me, Dad. You just stopped looking. The table fell silent again. Not out of discomfort this time, but realization. For a moment, no one moved. The clinking of glasses at nearby tables felt miles away. Madison sat stiffly, her manicured nails pressing against the edge of her wine glass. My parents exchanged glances, silent, uneasy. I'd imagined this moment 100 different ways, but none as quiet as this. I set my napkin down carefully, the way you do before saying something that will matter. You know, I began. For years, I let your laughter decide how small I should dream. But I don't owe that weight to anyone anymore. My father exhaled slowly. Emily. I raised a hand. Not sharply, but firmly. Let me finish. Their eyes fixed on me. I'd never had the floor before. When I walked away that night, I promised myself that if I ever stood in this room again, it would be as the woman I built, not the girl you doubted. I glanced at Madison, who was staring down at the untouched dessert in front of her. This isn't about rubbing anything in. It's about what comes next. Madison let out a bitter laugh. What? Are you going to teach us now? No, I said softly. I'm going to offer you the same thing I gave myself, a chance. My father frowned. A chance? Yes, I said. I've built something bigger than any of you thought possible. And I could help all of you, but not without conditions. Their postures shifted, subtle but telling. Madison, I said first. She looked up, her confidence cracked but not gone. You always wanted to run your own firm, right? Yes, she whispered. Then stop trying to build it on shortcuts and names. Do the work. If you're willing to actually learn, not leverage, I'll mentor you. But you'll start at the bottom, like I did. No special treatment. Her jaw tightened, but she didn't say no. Dad, I continued, turning to him, you've spent years teaching everyone about stability, but never once asked what fulfillment means to me. If we're going to have a relationship, I need you to respect that success doesn't have to look like yours. His eyes softened. He nodded slowly. Fair. And Mom, I said gently, I don't need your approval anymore. But I'd love your support if you can give it without judgment. I want Sunday dinners to be real, not performances. Her lips trembled just a little. I can do that, she said quietly. Finally, I leaned back. I'm not here to hold grudges. But I'm also not shrinking to make anyone comfortable again. You either meet me where I stand now or not at all. Both choices are okay. The silence this time felt different. Not uncomfortable, honest. A weight had shifted, settling where it belonged. For the first time, I wasn't asking to be seen. I was deciding how I would be treated. For most of my life, I'd been the one sitting at that table waiting for a sliver of validation. But that night, everything was different. The weight of their words no longer held me down, it rested on them. I could feel it in the quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes when people realize the story they wrote about you was wrong. Madison cleared her throat first, trying to recover her usual composure. So, maybe we got a few things wrong, she said with a forced laugh. A few? I raised a brow. She looked down, tapping the edge of her plate with her fork. Okay, Maybe more than a few. My father leaned back in his chair. I'll admit, Emily, I didn't think you'd pull it off. I thought it was a phase. I'm proud of you.
Pride.
A word I'd spent years pretending I didn't need from him. I let the warmth of it settle in me for a heartbeat, then I straightened my shoulders. I appreciate that. But I need to be honest, too. It wasn't just doubt I dealt with back then. It was mockery. It was being made to feel small for dreaming different. That doesn't disappear with one dinner. No one spoke. Madison's gaze dropped to her napkin. My mother bit her lip, something she only did when guilt settled in. I'm not here to humiliate anyone, I continued softly. But I also won't pretend it didn't happen. So if we're moving forward as a family, I need to lay out some conditions. Madison looked up, surprised. Conditions? Yes. I leaned forward slightly. If you want to be part of my life, it has to be real. No more belittling what doesn't fit your version of success. No more side comments about what's worthy or not. Respect isn't negotiable. My father nodded slowly, guilt shadowing his expression. Fair. I turned to Madison. And you've spent years measuring me against your ladder. I don't need your apology tonight. But I do need your honesty. Figure out what you want because it's yours, not because it looks good to everyone else. Stop chasing my mentor. Build something on your own terms. Her throat bobbed as she swallowed. Okay, she whispered. I will. And Mom, I said gently, I need you to stop cushioning the disrespect with polite smiles. You love us both, I know. But love has to look like accountability, too. She pressed her napkin to her chest, eyes wet. You're right. I should have protected you more. I'm sorry, honey. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The power I held wasn't about being above them. It was about finally standing on equal ground. This isn't revenge, I said. This is me choosing peace. But peace has rules. For the first time in years, they listened. Really listened. And that, more than anything, felt like victory. The days after the reunion felt strangely quiet, like the world had exhaled. For the first time in years, I didn't replay conversations in my head, trying to decode hidden insults or longing for words that never came. The air around me felt lighter, and my reflection in the mirror finally looked like someone I recognized. A week later, Madison showed up at my office unannounced. The elevator doors opened, and she stood there, blinking at the space she'd probably imagined as a tiny home setup. Instead, she found floor-to-ceiling windows, walls lined with framed design awards, and a team of young creatives brainstorming over coffee. Wow, she whispered. You really built all this. Brick by brick, I said, smiling. She held out a small white box. Inside was a delicate charm bracelet, silver vines wrapping around a single word, believe. I had it made, she said quietly. You told me to find something that's mine. I'm starting my own venture. Small but mine. For the first time, I saw something in her eyes that wasn't competition, it was humility, maybe even admiration. I'm proud of you, Maddie, I said, and I meant it. Later that evening, I sat alone in my office, the city glowing beyond the glass. I turned my wrist, the light catching my grandmother's bracelet, the one that read grow. I traced the word with my thumb, remembering her voice on that cold porch years ago. Build your own table, and when it's ready, let them knock. They had knocked, and I had opened the door, not to show off, but to show them it could be done. In the weeks that followed, things changed. My father started calling just to ask how I was doing, not what I was doing. My mother sent over old family photos with sticky notes that said things like, you always had that spark. And Madison began sharing her early designs, nervous but determined. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't a gift you give for them, it's the freedom you choose for yourself. As I packed up for the night, I caught my reflection again in the window. Not the girl they once mocked, not even the woman they finally respected, but someone who no longer needed either. I smiled to myself, whispering a quiet, final line that would echo in my own head like a closing scene in a film. They mocked my career once. Now, it's the dream they wish they'd believed in. And with that, I turned off the lights, the silver bracelet glinting one last time, proof that growth, no matter how slow, always finds the sun.